Warning, this podcast may be disturbing to some listeners. Due to the graphic nature, listener discretion is advised. Welcome from wherever you are. This is the Demon Inside podcast. I am your host, John Venom. If you would like to review another episode of the Demon Inside, you can go to Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and any podcast platform. You can also find us on YouTube and on our website, thedemoninside.transistor.fm. And please don't forget to subscribe and rate us with 5 stars. A new episode will come out once a week.
It's your first look inside the house known as the Portal to Hell, a place where demons supposedly wrought havoc with a helpless family in horror straight out of The Exorcist.
It was horrible.
This is the woman who lived in the House of Horrors with her 3 children. Latoya Ammon fought back tears when she told us how they fled in terror after her daughter was raised right off her bed. She says the demons sounded like this.
We've waited 5 months. It sounded like something dead.
She says she anointed the rooms with holy oil and read aloud from the Bible, but the nightmare went on and listened to a sound that cannot be explained by police who looked into the mysterious goings-on. While 2 cops are talking in the basement, someone can be heard saying, "Hey." Embrace yourself for what Latoya says happened to her son when she and her mom took him to the hospital. It's right out of the movie Poltergeist.
He walked up the wall and did the backwards flip.
How did everybody in the hospital react to your son walking up the wall?
They took off and they ran. The doctor from the psych ward said that's not real. That's not human. No human can do that.
Speaking of deep, mysterious voices,
you in there.
Those are the chilling words Captain Charles Austin will never forget. The 36-year veteran of the Gary, Indiana Police Department had just finished investigating strange occurrences in the house and was in his patrol car talking on the phone when he says something bizarre happened.
All of a sudden, while I'm involved in this conversation, the AM/FM radio went to static and turned up very loud. And it said, "You in there." And the person on the phone say, "What the hell was that?" And I say, "I don't know."
What was your reaction?
I was in shock.
Exorcizo te un bendissime.
Enter Father Michael Maginot, a local priest who got permission from the Bishop of Gary, Indiana, to perform an exorcism on Latoya.
Did you at one point believe this house was the portal to hell?
There was a portal.
Latoya moved out of the house and now lives many miles away. She knows her story is hard to believe.
Some people claim that you made this all up, that this was some sort of an elaborate hoax. Is this a hoax?
No, I don't feel that someone will have a reason to make something up like that.
Do you believe that house is possessed by demons?
I do. I feel that it's something very bad going on in that house.
Hello, my Demon Insiders, and welcome back to the Demon Inside. I'm your host, John Venom, and today we are going to be doing the Demon Inside, Latoya Ammon. Now, this has been done on a lot of other platforms because this was one of the cases that was more haunting than anything. It was an infestation and then it became a possession. This isn't the normal kind of case that I do, but I'm going to show you some of the similarities that I see between this case and some of the ones that we've done. And let me explain this too. The only reason that I'm doing this episode, this case, is because there's actual crime report from the police and CPS. So this is an actual case that happened. Now, it's up to you if you want to believe in it or not. I've had a hard time dealing with this. Let me be even more frank than that. I've been wanting to record a different case, but this one kept nagging at me and I didn't want to do it, and I thought maybe as a bonus, but if I did it as a separate bonus case, or if I did it as a Halloween thing, or if I did it as just any type of case or whatever, I would be disrespecting the people that are involved. And there's a lot of credible people that are involved in this case. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say that it's fake. I'm not going to say that it's real. Because, of course, when I do this podcast, it's up to you to decide what is real and what is not. Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to make anything up. I'm taking everything from the resources that I have found. I'm going to read a lot of this paperwork that I got on it. And I also have some video that was taken from a interview that was done with the exorcist priest who exorcised the home and Latoya. So this has no killings in it. It's not really a true crime unless you see CPS getting involved as a true crime, then by all means. But for the most part, this is an infestation and a possession case. And it is one of the most remarkable cases I've ever heard. And I still have trouble believing in it, even though there's credible people, and I have to put my mind around that. So let's get started with this. In April of 2011, in Gary, Indiana, Latoya Ammon and her 3 kids, she's a single mom. She was 31 at the time. And she had moved to Gary, Indiana, to get away from her ex-boyfriend. Now, this has a lot to do with the story in a way, and it's kind of weird, but I'll try to explain it best as I can. So she was in a relationship with this man who she found out eventually was married, and the wife of the guy called her and told her, this what any woman would say to the mistress. And of course, Latoya said, I didn't know he was married. She goes, you can have him. I'm done with him. I'm so sorry. And so this guy kept stalking her. And she ended up moving, and they got the house for rent. And they moved in, and she thought everything was going to be fine. Well, he ends up finding her, and she gets kind of upset because now it's her and her 3 kids with her mother. They're living in this house in Gary, Indiana, and he shows up out of the blue. Like, he finds her. Well, she starts to tell him, you need to leave. You have a wife. You're whatever. But he's like, look, I'm not here for you. I'm so sorry I did it. He goes, but I want to give the kids a present. He goes, they didn't deserve any of this. And it was kind of weird because he gave the 2 boys, remember, Latoya has a 12-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and a 7-year-old son. And he gives the 2 boys $5 each. Now, he doesn't give anything to the daughter, and Latoya kind of asked him, why aren't you giving her anything? And he said, she doesn't need it. She's good. Well, after that, things started happening in the house. It started off with things that started missing, like pictures. There was some clothes that were missing. There was little things. And Latoya was thinking that maybe it was the kids and they were misplacing stuff. I personally think that the ex-boyfriend took those things, and I'll explain in a while why I think that. So now, all of a sudden, they start hearing voices. The kids run into the backyard one day and they see a lady standing there. And when this lady turned around, she had red eyes, and they took off running. There was scratching noises and things like that. They were having nightmares, and then the two youngest boys, or the two boys, started to fight one another and curse at each other. And not only that, but they were growling at each other, and they were talking in a very deep, deep voice. And so Latoya was getting kind of freaked out about this, you know? And her daughter one day, they go into her room, the mother and the grandma, while she's asleep, and lo and behold, she is actually levitating above her bed. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but Garland Meelan, in his interview, said that when he was a child, he was levitating. And his, it was either the grandma or the aunt that freaked out and started calling him a devil, you know, because he was levitating over his bed. Now, this little girl, Latoya's daughter, was levitating, and the mother and the grandmother started praying around her bed, and eventually she came back down safely. When she woke up, she didn't remember any of that. So the haunting, the infestation of what they had was keeping them awake at nights. They had to go to sleep like around 8 o'clock, because by midnight, there was so much ruckus in this infestation that these kids couldn't sleep, and they started missing school. A lot of times, whenever she had the money to do it, they would go stay in a hotel, or they would go stay with her brother. When they started missing school, they had missed a whole week, and this is what triggered these next events. So the school ended up calling the police department and asking them to do a welfare check on these kids. When these police officers got there, one of the kids was in the bathroom, and it was almost like something pushed him out of the bathroom. Not just pushed him, but threw him. He flew across the hallway and hit the wall and passed out. At the same time, the other brother passed out, just passed out. So the police called the ambulance. They had them, go pick them up, and they wanted to do a checkup on them to see if they were okay. Now I'm going to play what Father Maginot was talking about what happened at the hospital. Take a listen to this from the interview.
So she was mainly with her mother and grandmother, and one would be in one room and the other would be in the other room, and they kind of separated because they would cuss at each other, and they'd say they're going to kill each other and all that. And the real young one, who was 7 years old, he's the one that they actually locked up in a child protective mental institution in the area. And so he was trying to choke his brother, and it took 5 guys to keep him on the bed, because he was super wild. But the other one, the 9-year-old, was the one that ended up walking on the wall backwards. And so most of the people were actually with this other boy. So it was mainly the grandmother with a child protective service agent, a nurse in the emergency room area, and also a psychiatrist, doctor, who was also there when the boy started to growl and his eyes kind of became white, and then she was backing him up, trying to get him back, and that's when he started walking up the wall backwards, flipped over her head, and then sat down in the chair, and then kind of turned toward the people, watching in amazement with this Grinch-like grin, with the eyes still kind of, in the white whites of his eyes showing, and everyone ran out of the room. When they talked to the children, all three were trying to talk to the boy there, asking how he did that, and he had no idea he did anything, because he doesn't remember any of that. So actually, he doesn't know what happened, and he was looking at him strangely, like, "What are you talking about?" And so he just only heard about that, and he said, "I didn't do that."
So now we have three things that I've actually talked about before. The first one, he was saying that 5 men, couldn't hold this kid down. And I've spoken about super strength when it came to possessions with Austin Haroff, Rudy Eugene, Annis and Joseph. And the next thing that was a reminder was also that him walking up the wall. Now, Rudy Eugene, and I don't know if I had said it in the podcast, but Rudy Eugene, they had seen him on the causeway where he was hanging from the street signs. So was he climbing or walking up? I don't know. But it sounded familiar, and I thought I'd mention that. And the third thing for me was when this kid was like, "I don't know what happened." That happens a lot in these cases where people don't remember because they're possessed. So now, nobody really believes, even the people that were in the room kind of freaked out. They're still, Father Maginot says that they still have problems, even to this day, trying to figure out what the hell he did. One of the nurse that was in the room actually quit her job, and she's still having trouble till this day. So after that incident happened, the police went to the house to check the house out to see, if the house was okay as far as, was she keeping these kids clean? Was she feeding them? Is it a clean house? And so you have the police chief and 2 other officers. One's a lieutenant and the other's in charge of cases kind of like this. I'm going to play Father Maginot because he describes it so much better than I can, of who was in the house. Now, as far as the kids are concerned, 2 of them were sent to foster homes, and the other kid was sent, like he said, to a mental institution. They were thinking at this time that maybe her religious influence was getting these kids to do a lot of this stuff until that kid walked up the wall. The psychologist said it doesn't matter how crazy you are, that's just impossible. No human being can do what that kid did. So, like I said, now they go back to the house, which is the 3 police officers and Father Maginot, who he was called in after this kid went up the wall. One of the people that was there watching actually called the police, and then they called the priest from the hospital, who then called the archdiocese, and the archdiocese reached out to Father Maginot, who got involved. But let me go ahead and play you what the police saw and what they heard and what happened to them.
In Lake County, Indiana, there was the chief of police of Hammond. Before he became chief of police, he happened to be the officer on scene. There's an area called Wolf Lake, and they discovered it looked like a cult activity going on there, and so it looked like animal sacrifices or something was happening there. So he became kind of the expert in the area for that. And then when he became chief of police in Hammond, he would hand that on to the lieutenant from the Lake County Sheriff's Department to handle all that. So that's why that guy got involved. And then the Captain Austin of the Gary Police Department was just, that was his jurisdiction to be in Gary. So you had these three kind of involved and consulting with each other. But when they went that Wednesday, they all came with electronic devices, and they all had different things happen to their electronic device, at least one of them. So one had, was going to videotape the whole thing, and when he went to turn it on, it was drained. He said, I just put fresh batteries in here, it's gone, it's dead. And then the Gary captain, when he left there, all of a sudden his radio went going through the static, like going through the different stations, and then said, "You, what are you doing? You in there?" or something like that. Oh, and then the lieutenant was able to use his voice recorder, and he was just kind of narrating the things, since they couldn't record it on. Oh, actually, and I think they ended up recording it on a phone. So they did. He was going to use a video camera, but they were able to record things on the phone, and then he remembers kind of looking underneath the stairs, and he was taking pictures, and he goes, "Oh man, it looks like there's an altar here, or it looks like there's candles here, and things." They say, "Oh man, the fire department's not going to like this," and such. And then as he was saying that, all of a sudden on his recording, it says, "Hey." And then when he took the picture, when it said "hey," he saw two look like orbs, a green orb and a white orb. They look like heads.
So now the story starts kind of sounding familiar, like the Amityville Horror. And of course, I didn't do that one. I did Ronald DeFeo, which he killed his family in that house. Was somebody killed in this house? I don't know. As a matter of fact, there was underneath the stairs in the basement, they found dirt, and the police decided to start digging, but they didn't find any bodies or anything. They did find a couple of weird items, like a woman's nightgown, nail, a fingernail that might have been like a press-on nail, and a sock, and then like a shoe horn, but it was broken in half. So does that mean something? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But what I do know is this. The brothers were, when they were possessed, one would start singing, one he would start a sentence or start singing, and then the other brother would continue it after he was done, like halfway through. It was really like they were sharing two bodies in one with one demon. And the priest actually exorcised Latoya, who he says was possessed. It wasn't the kids. The demon was using Latoya to possess the kids. Now, as far as what they said about the altar that was in their basement, was because they were afraid, so they started putting candles, and they started, putting crucifixes and things like that. And that's what that guy was talking about, saying that the fire marshal or whatever wasn't going to be happy. So now let's go back real quick to the boyfriend that I talked to you about at the beginning of the show. He gave the two boys $5 each, and I believe that those $2 could have been a type of curse, if you will. And we've heard of this before with Yuri Graham. When I did season 1, he had killed his mom, and he blamed it because he said that this lady sold him a crystal that made him kill them, and that it was harboring a demon or something along those lines. Could something like that have happened? Well, sure. Think about this. He had taken the pictures that I believe, and they probably did some type of seance or service or something, and he could have put that curse on those two $5 bills and given it to the boys. Why would he do that? Because people are evil. Now, again, it's just kind of my guess of what might have started all this up, because none of this had happened before he gave them that gift. Now, we've done a show where brothers, well, not really, where twin sisters shared a so-called psychosis, which I believe were demons that were infesting them. Remember the case from season 1? It was the Erickson sisters, and it was Ursula and Sabina Erickson, and one of them was here in the States, the other one was in London. They both met up just out of the blue one day and started running into traffic trying to get hit by cars. Now, there's a video of that, and I'm going to put the link at the bottom on the description of that. And I'm also going to put a link of Father Maginot's interview because it's a lot longer. And I really suggest, if you like this kind of stuff, to listen to it because it's very interesting. And because I heard the whole interview, I decided that I'm not going to say the names of the demons anymore, only because he made a good point saying that if you say the name of a demon, somebody might try to use it to conjure it up. And I kind of agree with that, because when I first started doing this podcast, I got a lot of responses of people that wanted to meet a demon. And it was the craziest thing. Do I believe that this was real? And I have to say yes, because how could these people that were professionals, how would they all get together and decide, oh, let's help Latoya, who we don't even know, let's help her make up this story that she says her kids are possessed and there's demons in our house, and we're going to help her, and the police chief is going to say, oh, I heard a voice saying, hey, you, or what are you doing in there? No, none of that. Because I don't even have that kind of support, and I have a lot of good friends. I believe that this was a demon infestation that turned into a possession, and it shows how one demon can touch everyone in that house. The only one it didn't touch was the grandma. And the grandma said, it's because I'm bathed by the blood of Christ. That's why they won't touch me. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a good one. Be safe. See y'all next week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Demon Inside podcast on any podcast platform. A new episode of the Demon Inside will be released every week. Let us know what you think of the episode on any of our social media platforms. If you have any questions or comments, go to the Demon Inside Podcast at gmail.com or click at the link below. We would love to hear from you. And to become a Demon Insider, go to the Demon Inside Podcast.transistor.fm. We thank you for listening and hope you will join us next week for a new Demon Inside podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please tell your friends. I am John Venom, and I'll see you next time, if I don't get possessed. The Demon Inside was created and written by James Porter. It is a production of Venomous Entertainment. Background music is by Lucas King. And the title song, The Demon Inside, was produced by Rice Fulber. Music and lyrics by Peter Shelley. and performed by Conjure One. All the content on this podcast is strictly the opinion of the content creator and not the organization, its affiliates, or employees.